I think we can start now. Good morning, Dr. Roshan. Welcome to the Emerging Scholars Research Program of Sri Lanka Technology Campus. First of all, I'll just give you a brief introduction to the program. So here we have selected 20 students from the second year. Well, there's a real interest in research, and we are taking them through a journey. So in the first part, they are learning about the various aspects of research, starting from how to write a research proposal and research ethics, to safety, and then towards the publications, and then writing proposals, writing reports, and finally IP protection and IP commercialization. So in addition to the students, we have some teaching assistants as well who have joined. So after the first session, then they'll be allocated to the 13 various research groups that we have under the research cell. And then they will be able to write their own proposal and then start doing research. So the plan is by the time when they graduate after 4 years, if they can have at least 1 or 2 publications under their name, that's the plan.
I see.
And also more than that, because since both of us have gone through almost the same procedure when we were going from our bachelor's degree to PhD in the state, we know that we had to go through another learning curve during the first year. When we get there, and then but what I want is these students to get that experience while they are doing their undergraduate studies, so that if they are planning to start their postgraduate degrees, this will be a good training for them. So having said that, we really appreciate you accepting our invitation, because we know how busy you are, and I know now the time is 5:30 in the morning. So without taking much time, I would introduce you to the session. So Dr. Roshan Gunasekera is an accomplished assistant professor at Yale University School of Medicine, with a strong background in chemistry combined with neuroscience and laboratory safety. Dr. Gunasekera received his Bachelor of Science degree in chemistry from University of Peradeniya and PhD in organic chemistry from Iowa State University, USA. Interests of Dr. Gunasekera lie with bringing together chemistry and neuroscience with the aim of advancing knowledge about normal physiology and developing translational tools and treatments for debilitating neurological disorders. Prior to joining Yale, Dr. Gunasekera held roles such as research scientist and safety officer, where he played a key role in implementing safety protocols, managing laboratory safety programs, and mentoring students in both academic and research settings. In addition, Dr. Gunasekera is a recipient of 3 US patents and various accolades, including Yale Center for Clinical Investigation Award, the Alpha Chi Sigma Research Award, Graduate Research Symposium Award, and Frank J. Moore and Corinne Beth Moore Fellowship Award. So we welcome you to the program once again, and this is going to be the 4th session of the Emerging Scholars Program. So we would like to welcome Dr. Gunasekera. Dr. Gunasekera, over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Lakshita Pahalagedera, for the nice introduction. So I will share my screen now. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, we do. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to discuss about safe practices in the laboratory. And actually, today we will go through different segments under that program. Especially, I will discuss about my background, and then we will quickly jump into the laboratory safety matters and impact of unsafe practices, laboratory hazards, emergency preparedness, and creating a safety culture for all of the researchers. So, without further ado, I will discuss about the career pathways in USA, and this is normally the career pathway in USA. And we'll start our degrees either with 4 years or 3 years degree. You can choose any program streams to study for your bachelor's. I know some of you do accounting, some of you do IT, some of you do biology, some of you do chemistry, and so on and so forth things. But in your career, you will end up with a 4 year degree or a 3 year degree. So when you have a 3 year degree or a 4 year degree, you can apply to a PhD program in US that is called Doctor of Philosophy, or people who have 3 year degrees, they will start doing a master's degree in a accredited university in Sri Lanka uh, to cover up the 3 year degree that they've gone through. And not only that, some people will start to do Master of Philosophy. This can be actually go to up to 2 to 3 years of time. And then what they do is eventually apply to Doctor of Philosophy in USA. So this will take normally 5 years in USA because it includes another master's degree itself. And also the research component throughout the 5 years. So the basic idea is that when you apply for PhD, the PhD always carries through a lot of research. So during the 5 years or 6 years of the study, you will always trying to finish a research project, at least one, but many will finish more than one project. And after that, so what's the next steps? So ultimate goal is to get into either the industry or the faculty. So you can see my cursor, right? So industry and faculty are the both available for you in US for job opportunities. People after doing bachelor degrees, they can join industry. People who can have master's degrees or master of philosophy, they can also join industry. And after completing a PhD degree, you can also still jump into industry. Or if you want to go through the faculty program, which is a little bit a grueling exercise where I went through, you have to take up another postdoctoral studies. That means after the PhD of 5 years of research, then you have to work under another professor for another 2 to 3 years or 4 years, depending on how long would it go. And then you study an independent research. So in that case, you are doing more independent research, where you will be the initiator of your research, and then you will carry out your research program, and then eventually you will smoothly transition to a faculty position in a university. So talking about my background, so sorry. Okay, so yeah, so talking about my educational background, um, I was born and raised in Kandy, Sri Lanka, and my high school education was Trinity College, Kandy, and I did my A levels in mathematics. So I didn't have at that time any biological background. I didn't do any biological studies, but I did my A level in mathematics. And then we all know that after taking the advanced level, either we will go to engineering, or we will end up in science college. But because of my advanced level results, I ended up at Faculty of Science, University of Peradeniya. And then when we were about to choose subjects, I actually chose computer chemistry, and statistics. So the idea is that you can pursue any of these streams and get specialized at the end of 4 years degrees. And that time, the University of Peradeniya was offering 3-year degrees as well as 4-year degrees. The 3-year degrees, if you finish it up in 3 years, definitely, as I said earlier, you have to go back and do a MPhil or a master's degree before you apply for PhD. But if you have a 4-year degree, definitely you can apply for a PhD in US. So I finished it up doing a chemistry special degree, and then before you apply for a PhD, we had to do some 2 examinations, GRE and TOEFL. English exam as TOEFL. The other exam is required, but these days GRE is not acceptable in US. It's just old days. So now you can even apply with only English examination for PhD programs in US. And I applied for different programs in different universities, and I was selected for a scholarship at Iowa State University. And there I was assigned for a professor to do research on under chemistry. So at Iowa State, I was doing 5.5 years of research in chemistry, and I was developing different nanoparticles, nanomaterials, small molecules, and then studied their functions. So that was the main reason. And the idea behind this PhD is that we will get trained to synthesize molecules, we will get trained to follow protocols, we will get trained to do teaching, we will get trained to do independent work. So basic idea of PhD is that you are getting trained for almost every aspect of your life. So it's a very good opportunity, and if you're really inspired to do a PhD, my idea is go for it, because it's really interesting and it will be really paying off in your further down the pathway. So I would like to say after that, I had the chance to go into industry, as I mentioned earlier. So after the PhD, you can directly jump in industry, or you can try the faculty positions as well. But in between, people after going to industry, they can also jump into faculty, and also the vice versa happens. After going into faculty, the people can jump into industry. So likewise, I wanted to try the faculty position. So what I did was I did a postdoctoral education, where I was came to Yale, and then I did another 3.5 years of research, where that was a very independent research, where I have to initiate my own research program, and then discuss with the professors, and then I have to initiate it, and then I have to get the results, and then I just want to publish it. So everything is done as a kind of an initiative way, so that this one is kind of the smooth transition back to faculty. So excuse me. So in the research program, what I did was I was trying to learn about biology, because from my high school up to PhD, I never had any exposure to biology, but that was a little bit of a dilemma, I would say. And therefore, I wanted to learn about biology. And then in this lab, when I was carrying out my independent research program, I learned a lot of biology, especially around brain and how the brain functions. So for that, I worked with cells, molecular biology, and mouse models, as well as in vivo imaging. So I did a lot of training under these types of things, and also learned a lot about biology before accomplishing the research programs. And after that, I applied several faculty jobs, and I just got selected into Yale. And at Yale, what we do is 4 different components. So we have the research component, we have the teaching component, we have the departmental duties, and we have voluntary work. So voluntary work, we cannot say no. We have consulting, and people come to us for consulting, especially faculty people as well as outside people come for consulting. And we have to do grant reviews, and just like my grants being reviewed by some other PI a professor, I have to review their grants by myself. So just like that, I have to do grant reviews and consulting. And departmental duties also comes into play, where uh, I have to say yes for many duties. For example, I have to select the students for a certain program, or I have to rank some of the 20 or 30 students depending on their qualifications. And also we have meeting schedules, and we have symposiums that I have to arrange. So all these ones are called departmental duties. And on top of that, we are going to be evaluated based on the research and teaching. Teaching, I do teaching for mostly PhD students, and most important part is the research part, where we have to do research for different publications. So when we do research, we can do I am normally doing a neurochemistry research, where the neurology and chemistry is combined, two different aspects, where the chemistry part I learned from PhD, and the neuroscience part I learned during my postdoctoral studies. So now I combine those two, and which is very important to develop publications, because the publications leads to funding, and the funding lead to more research. So this is actually a circle. It never ends in our life, because the research leads to publication leads to funding, and so on and so forth. That circle never ends, and that is a circle. So in this research, the most important part and aspect is also the safety component, because we know we are trying to do different cutting edge research to get more publications, to get more funding. But the most important part when it's come to research is the safety, because the safety matters, and safety is important for all of the things that we do here. So why laboratory safety matters? Uh, the most important part is it protects researchers and staff from harm, because you are not the only one in the lab, or you are not the only one who is working on a research item. You will be assigned for different research programs, and then you will be doing research with a collaborative fashion. So when you do a collaborative fashion research, you always need to look after other people, and also you always need to stay away from harm. And the next important thing is that you should not be damaging equipments and facilities. So when you have a safety protocol, safety is important, because there are very valuable equipments and components in a lab that you have to keep safely. So to prevent damage to these equipments and facilities, you have to follow the safety protocols. And and the third one is actually also important, that also preserve the integrity of the scientific research, because most of the time what we do in scientific research has to be reproducible. So when you have reproducibility, you have to think of a laboratory that is very clean, and all these non-contaminated items. For example, if you get an instrument should be calibrated, and if you have materials, or if you are working with the materials, those materials should not be contaminated, because once you do the research, it has to be reproduced in another lab. For example, let's say A labs synthesize some materials, so that around the world another B lab can reproduce whatever I synthesize in the A lab. So if I had a contamination or some kind of a impurity, then the B lab would not be able to reproduce the data. So for scientific research, that's why we follow the safety matter, so that in a safety culture, in a safety laboratory, we will have very clean space and we will have very clean materials, so that the materials not get contaminated, and therefore the research that we carry out can be duplicated in elsewhere. So safety ensures the well-being of people and reliability of the research. So therefore the safety is utmost important. And we will talk about what happens when there is unsafe practices. So in unsafe practices, most likely you will have injuries or loss of life, and contaminations of experiments, and there might be also legal and financial consequences. I will actually combine these three in real life, and I will show you in a bit how this can be more devastating. So we have very tragic three events that normally discuss all across US. These three cases are very important and they always pop up in our safety meetings. One is Karen Wettenhorn. She is actually a professor of chemistry in Dartmouth, very close to our university. She was doing some research with mercury, and she was exposed to the radiation, and therefore she died in 1997. So this is because of mercury poisoning. So this is a unfortunate tragic situation where you were exposed to mercury poisoning and then she died in 1997. The second example coming from UCLA, University of uh, uh, California, Los Angeles, where Sherry Sanji, a graduate student from chemistry, she was doing some research. She was actually assigned for organic chemistry, where she was doing some research of chemistry and handled pyrophoric materials, and therefore she got burned by this material and died in 2008. Some may not know about pyrophoric materials. The pyrophoric materials meaning that the materials that ignites in air. So she didn't had the proper knowledge about this pyrophoric material, so therefore she was just opening up the lid, put the needle inside. All of a sudden the fire catches her and her hair and her costumes, and she was died in an hospital. The third one is actually in our university, Michelle Dufault. She's also an undergraduate in physics, and at Yale, we have a separate place for machinery using. For that means, like, if you have an imaginary thing to develop, you just go to that building and then you just start up from scratch. You can develop using artificial intelligence, and you can develop modules. You can make up different items based on your imagination. So it has to equip with equipments, and also it has mechanical devices, circuits, clothes, everything that you can imagine. That building contains everything, because even they have 3D printers. So if you think of like an idea that you wanted to see physically, you can develop in that laboratory. So she was one of those. She was doing physics and she wanted to develop a architecture material, and she went to the lab, and she was working very late night and alone, where her hair was tangled with a machine, and she died in 2011. So these are three different cases where we study that the safety matters, and you have to be very careful, because of doing research, it doesn't mean that you are following the protocols. You have to understand what are the threats and harms that is coming on your way, and you have to act accordingly. Because these three cases, at least the second case and the third case, there was a there was a study that they went through to understand what went wrong, and one was the contaminations of experiments. The pyrophoric materials was contaminated, and also she didn't know what was that material is about, even though it was said as pyrophoric materials. And legal and financial consequences also came to not to not to not include not to the university, but also for the professors. The professors who were in charge looking after these graduate students were also held responsible in these two cases. So likewise, there will be consequences, and injuries are always inevitable, but you have to follow the safety protocols so that you can actually minimize those harms. And most importantly, when you're working in a laboratory, these are the things that you have to look for. The code is known to be as PPE, and it is called as personal protective equipments. So personal protective equipments is the number one reason that you should take care when you're entering into a lab. So you should have a lab coat, you should have gloves, you should have goggles, and you should definitely have closed toe shoes. So these four, the there is no exceptions in our labs. Everybody should wear the lab coat, everybody should wear the gloves, everybody should wear the gloves, goggles, and also everybody should wear closed toe shoes. No high heels, no open shoes, or no sandals. That is a strict laboratory rule that is enforced at Yale and also Iowa State. I'm pretty much sure it is enforced all across US. And depending on your job and task, you may wear the mask, you may wear the face shield, or you may wear the hearing protection. The hearing protection is for sometimes people do research in a high noise environment, as well as when you are doing different instrumentations. You might want to wear the hearing protection to preserve your hearing. And face shield is important when you are working with biological pathogenic or viruses. Face shield is a must because it might squeeze and comes and spray onto your face. So to protect from getting into that exposure, face shield or the masks are important. But all these four, lab coat, gloves, goggles, closed toe shoes, are important and main aspects of the personal protective equipments that you should be concerned when you are in a lab trying to do research. So let's look at some of the hazards that are there in labs. We normally categorize into four, but there might be five hazards. I will come to that part. One is known to be as biological hazards. Biological hazards are actually contain pathogens, microbes, and viruses. So in at Yale, there are research groups that are handling pathogens, microbes, and viruses, and biofluids, that is actually including mouse blood and also human blood. So they always contain different pathogens and microbes. So therefore, you have to look for they are called as biological hazards, and this is the normal sign that you are seeing in a biological hazard lab. Chemical hazards. There are so much of chemicals that you can expose when you're doing an organic chemistry or even you are doing a biological research. Toxic. They are toxic, flammable, or corrosive. Most of the time they are very toxic, flammable, or corrosive. So the pyrophoric materials, they are always kept under vacuum conditions, and these toxic or the corrosive materials are kept in cabinets, safety cabinets. So very important to take a notice on chemical hazards, because they are also very dangerous and you have to be aware of those. Physical hazards, sharp objects, high pressure equipment, electrical hazards, and also noise. They are all come under physical hazards. And even if you're not doing a biological laboratory research, even if you're doing IT or even if you're doing business, major research, still the physical hazards come into play because you might have sharp objects, you will have high pressure equipments and noise and electrical equipments. So electrical hazards means you might have electrical devices that are just open in space, and you have to be careful not to poke or not to play with the hazards because they are electrical hazards. And these are the normal signs that normally put out for physical hazards. And the most important and the most dangerous one, I would say, is the radiological hazards because it penetrates through the walls. So radiological hazards, there you need to have proper personal protective equipments that should be used in handling radioactive materials, because the most important thing is that to understand what is radiological hazard is that they just penetrate through walls and penetrate through objects. So everything else doesn't penetrate through depending on the the shield that you use, but radiological hazards normally they penetrate through different shields. So therefore we will use a lead based shielding from radiological hazards. So these are the normal laboratory hazards that are falling into labs categories. And on top of it, now these days, because of the computers and research going on with IT, there is another hazard comes out to pay as the device hazards, where if you're having unwanted devices or expired devices, they are all called as device hazards. So they are just falling under that category. And we will look through some hazardous materials play cards, that is called as PL cards. In US at least, there are 9 classes of materials that you have to look for. Class 1 is always very dangerous, and from 1 to 9 it is from dangerous to mild dangerous. So explosive materials comes under class 1 category. Flammable gas, you can see non-flammable gas, oxygen, flammable gas, number 2, red, inhalation hazards. All these ones are considered to be class 2 hazards. And class 3 are combustible liquids, flammable liquids. Any organic solvent comes under the class 3 materials because they are all combustible liquids and flammable liquids. Flammable solids, sodium, potassium, those solids comes under class 4 category, where they are called as flammable solids. They are dangerous when they are wet, spontaneously combustible, especially sodium and potassium. Oxidizers are there. So oxidizers, coal oxidizers and organic peroxides. A lot of peroxides are there. And H2O2 is hydrogen peroxide. These all comes under class 5. Class 6, poisons, inhalation hazard. Some are some are like cyanide categories comes under class 6. And also inhalation means the fumes. Some of the fumes also will be hazard. So that is where you have to wear the mask to prevent from inhalation hazard. So radioactive materials comes under class 7. The most important part is that the sign, when you see this sign, that means around the lab or around the space you will see radioactive materials. So that means you have to, if you are going into that particular region, or if you are getting exposed to those particular radioactivity, you have to prepare for that. Especially in US, people wear lead based protective shields so that the radioactive materials never penetrate through. So that is the only case where you use materials to prevent from getting a radioactive exposure. Corrosive, when they've fallen into a floor or to hand, it will harm, and you will see a burn. So that is why it's called as corrosive. And class 8 materials are falling into that. Any acid, any hydrochloric, nitric, sulfuric, acetic acid, or anything. In biology, people use acetic acid, and any acid comes under corrosive category, because when they fallen into space, onto a table or even to a hand, that will cause a burning situation. Miscellaneous hazards came lately, that is for batteries and lithium based products, especially batteries, because they are also hazardous, and some even in some airlines still prevent using those batteries in the check-in luggage because of their hazardous. So with that, let's move on to emergency preparedness, because this does not mean that you should not do any research. This just means that you have to be a little more careful when you see these signs, when you see these posts, and you have to be a little careful. We know that we have to do research, but also we have to be taking care of ourselves. So for that, we want to know about the emergency preparedness in emergencies, especially in a fire or in an emergency. You should evacuate from the lab. Look for evacuation plans and exits. You will see some signs on your labs and to the exit points. Those have been normally posted in red sign, and normally in labs they will also post some maps about how to exit from the lab space immediately when you see a fire or some kind of a emergency. So location for fire extinguishers and first aid kits. This is very important in the laboratory. We normally keep at least 2 to 3 fire extinguishers in laboratories. We don't know at what point the fire gonna get catch up with materials or with substances or with even with machines. So we always keep uh, fire extinguishers. Keeping the fire extinguisher is not going to help you anyway. Why? Because you need to know where it is being placed. So therefore we have to give an extra time to find out where the fire extinguishers are, and importantly you should also pay attention where the first aid kits are, because whenever you have a cut or whenever you have a bleed through, you just need some band-aids. So, and also the first aid kit at least have some of those band-aids so that you can put it on, and then you can do the preventative measures afterwards. Emergency contact numbers. So the professor in charge, there might be some senior students in the lab, and also and also the department heads. Everybody should be contacted during an emergency, because they should let know what's going on and what's the emergency that's going on. So therefore these are the emergency procedures that you might want to follow: plans and exits, find the fire extinguishers and first aid kits, and emergency contact numbers. So here, in most laboratories, and not all, most, every laboratory should have spill management system. Most of the time they have a bucket with the spill kits that are normally absorbents. So these are absorbent pads. So where we have gloves and safety goggles. We open up the safety bin, and then we just throw into any leak areas or any spill areas, or even even if in a fire they have like a cloth that you can just put it there, or they can use actually a fire extinguisher. So therefore they have many things inside this bucket. It's kind of like a magical bucket that you can use for many purposes. Especially we are using for spill management. For example, if there is a acid spill, we normally throw these type of towels and absorbent pads onto the table, and it will be absorbed, and after that we just properly discard it. So that's how we manage any spill. And radiological spills, we have radiological spill management boxes. In my lab, at least, we are not using radiological spills, so therefore we don't have a radiological spill management system. But the labs that use radiological materials, they have to go through very strict protocols so that they have preventative measures for your safety. So the next part is training and documentation. Training and documentation is very important because the importance is about that, not like, okay, we have safety protocols. The safety protocols can be held, but the thing is that the students and the researchers should aware of what are the training and safety things. So for that, we keep a training record for every individual who join in a laboratory. They have to follow a safety protocol training process where they might take some active lessons or some of internet-based interactive courses, and they have to show up the certificate before they do get into any laboratory space. So for that, initial and ongoing on safety training programs are available. Specialized training for hazard procedures are available. So you have to take all these training processes. These are not only they are just for your safety, but also for other laboratory people, so occupants as well. So this training is not an harassment. Don't think like, oh, this is just another procedure that I have to follow. No, that is for your safety as well as for the lab occupant safeties. So therefore, just follow the importance of training, understand the importance of training, and then follow the protocols and also get trained very well. We keep a record keeping because at least in our university, they have uh, uh, 2 to 3 yearly monitoring system that every professor has to keep their logs and maintaining safety records up to date. That means every student who is working in our laboratories should go through all these safety programs, and the certificates and the reporting and the logs are being kept securely in our systems, so that when you are reporting an incident, we have to show that, hey, we have already gone through the safety protocols, but still something failed or something happened beyond our control. So for that reason, we always keep all these documents in a safe place. And also, with that idea, we move on to the creating a safety culture, where the safety is the utmost thing is, and also the importance of doing a research. Research is always accomplished by many ways, but we have to respect other people and also your research. So therefore, for that reason, we normally pay attention to safety. So encouraging safety awareness. So the professors, department heads, and everybody, and also even colleagues should encourage the safety awareness. There's a safety awareness programs can be coming as regular safety meetings in the labs or in a seminar, just like this, or open communication about hazards. These open communications can be between friends to friends, or between professors to students, or it can be from department heads to professors to students. Likewise, the communication is important because that is how you get to know that some things are very hazardous and some things are very dangerous. So if you know the hazardous or materials or the harm, then you can take preventative measures through personal protective equipments. And accountability and leadership also important. Some roles and responsibilities of lab personnel. Senior lab personnel are already gone through the safety, and that's why they instruct the juniors to follow the same protocol. It's not like a harassment, or it's not like a kind of a torturing situation, but just think as it's just a responsibility of you and as well as the senior lab personnel to train you well before you touch an equipment or even a research. Why these are important? Because there are a lot of, as I mentioned earlier, there is a lot of delicate materials and also delicate instruments, and very expensive instruments are available. So if you don't know what you're doing, and if you don't get trained to what to do, then you will handle the materials unsafely, and also you will definitely ruin the settings of a delicate equipment, and that is also leading to problems for the senior researchers in the lab. So therefore, that's why we always impose safety and training, because from that the lab will move smoothly and your research will move smoothly, and most importantly, it will help other colleagues to be in the safe environment. So accountability and leadership, that's how it comes. Lab personnel, the seniors will train the juniors, and also seniors will be leading the research by an example and wearing gloves, goggles, closed-toe shoes, and so on and so forth, personal protective equipments. So with that being said, I would like to enhance again the summary and the key takeaways from my presentation. Safety is very important. I know the research is also important when you are doing a degree, but to get some publications out, and when you are doing when you are thinking of a publication, the research is important. But when you think of a research, what I would say, safety is important as well, because safety culture is utmost important for your well-being, as well as the all the seniors and all the other colleagues that is in the lab as well. So encouraging safety awareness is important. Identify and understand the potential hazards. You might be getting into a organic chemistry lab, you might be getting into a IT lab, or you might be getting into a biological lab. Doesn't matter. I should identify what are the potential hazards, follow the safety protocols, how you implement the computational softwares, or how do you implement the equipments, very expensive equipments, or how do you follow managing the materials. So follow the protocols, stay prepared. If you don't know anything, just ask from the seniors. It's always good thing or good culture to ask from seniors, because seniors have already gone through this process. So that's why we always say, when we are getting trained or when we are putting into training purposes, just look for seniors and ask from seniors, because seniors know more than you. You're just getting into the lab, but the seniors already gone through the protocols, and they know what are the safety measures to go through. So stay prepared for emergencies. Likewise, for fire extinguishers, first aid, and also emergency evacuations. So you should know. And during an emergency, you should not be taking the elevator. You should take the steps and get down from the steps, because the elevators normally blocked. And foster culture of safety in the lab. So if you take care of the safety awareness, then there will be a very safety culture for all of us, so that we can do independent research that is very valuable for your next steps in your career. So next steps, what I would suggest is schedule a regular safety training, discuss with your colleagues what are the safety training or protocols available, and you should be taking care of yourself as well. So with that being said, um, thank you very much, Dr. Lakshita and Januki, for giving me this opportunity to recapitulate some of the important aspects of safety trainings that we all go through. And if you have questions, now it is open for any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Roshan. So let's see whether we have any questions regarding what he delivered, and not only on the safety matters, but if you're curious about, since the TAs are also here, if you're curious about your pathway in front of you, I think this is a good time to discuss or ask questions. So at the same time, I want to highlight the fact that it's not that we learned, or the students learned from someone about safety. We learned about safety from a very experienced person, because he was the lab safety officer for 5 years, and then he's a Yale professor. So he has research students under him, so he's responsible for all the safety matters happening in the lab. So he goes through these stuff every day. So that's the most important thing. And I need to mention one other thing, Dr. Roshan. It's apart from the safety matters, I think there are a couple of other take-home messages as well. How far we can reach from his story, being a Sri Lankan kid, going through a Sri Lankan university, and then now he's a EL professor. So I think that's a great story, life story for everyone. And also, the most important thing is he mentioned that he was a mathematics, physical science student, and now he's a professor working in neuroscience and organic chemistry. And he started that part when he started the postdoctoral research, probably at the age of 28, 30, I guess. If you really want, you can learn anything and you can be an expert in that area. That's who he is now. After having a big gap, after his O-level biological science classes, he might have read a book in biological science at the age of 28 or 30. But then he becomes an expert. So if you really want to do something and if you're really inspired about something, get into that and put effort, and then you can be whoever you want to be. I think that's the most important lesson that I learned today. Even I also learned that because I didn't know what your actual background is now, what kind of research that you do now, and what kind of background you had. Even though we went through the same path, he was just 1 year junior to me. Both of us did chemistry as a chemistry special degree at University of Peradeniya. So we knew each other really well, and we went through the same path. And he took a very interesting path, and now he's at a very high level. So really happy for you, Dr. Roshan. At the same time, if you have any questions, I think we can ask. And I want to invite you. I will talk to you in the future because this is limited to the Emerging Scholars Program. So only a few kids and TAs have joined. But we are having webinars which we open up for the entire university community and also to the others. So in the future, we will invite you to discuss about your research work, which is really interesting. And then we want to have you in the future as well. Securing
it. I didn't want to include any research in this presentation just because the topic was different. So
we'll go to a wider audience with your research, I think, because it will be interesting for many people. And we'll give that opportunity to a wider audience, not only to the university community, but also to the entire general public. So we'll have that. We'll have it arranged in the future. So if there are no any other questions, I think, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to Dr. Roshan. I will facilitate that. I think it's time to thank Dr. Roshan. So I would like to invite Januki to formally thank you. We really appreciate your time.
First and foremost, I would like to thank Dr. Roshan Gunasekera for accepting our invitation and sharing the valuable insights and knowledge with us. So irrespective of your busy schedule, so we are truly grateful for your time and the efforts that you have invested in us. So thank you very much. And next, I would like to thank our senior management for their constant leadership, and then Dr. Lakshita Palagidara for connecting the dots and making this session a reality. And then I would like to thank the Emerging Scholars students for taking part in this event. Thank you.
Thanks, Januki. So thank you, Roshan. Have a good day. It must be very cold out there, right?
Yep. It's like a -2, -3 Celsius degree at this moment.
Yes. That's great. I will speak to you later. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.
You too.